Welcome guys to another vlog. Today we're going to start it off with this unfortunate incident where we have a absolutely obliterated alloy. This makes me very sad. But we move on. So something about me that you may not know, I first started trading or came across the idea of trading when I was 16. I'm 26 now, so this is like 10 years ago, through like a distant relative of mine who was actually a broker. But I came across the idea of trading, and to me, in my mind, the only way at that time you could make money was either you got really lucky in life, you won the lottery, or you had a rich family and you were involved in some kind of business, right? I didn't even consider the idea of trading. Or you get a really, really high paying job and you save your way to success, which we all know now watching this is not how it works anymore. Maybe like 40 years ago. So the first thing I tried to do, of course, as a 16-year-old with literally no money, was why don't I just try and teach myself this trading thing, right? It seems logical. I didn't even consider like education or anything like that because it just didn't make sense to me. I thought, well, let me just try and have a little gander myself, basically. So I came across a lot of resources online. Baby Pips back in the day as well was a classic. And I indulged in teaching myself for around 18 months. Considering I was going into college at this point from 16 to 17, right? So for those of you who live in the UK know that's the transitional age between high school and college. And still in my mind, I thought, well, I can learn this thing on the side. And I mean, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, I'll just try something else. I'll just carry on with my studies. No one has to know about it. Little did I know that was the start of something that was going to change my entire life as to where I am right now. My mindset as a 16-year-old of teaching myself was that, and the more I got into it, the worse it got, was that, well, I want to carry on teaching myself and I'm going to figure this out because, you know what, I want to be that guy that says at the end of it that I did this myself. That was the coding in my mind. I am the guy who's done this myself, blah de blah. As time went by, I had more information that had compelled in my mind. More information, over and over again. More learning, and more confusion with it. And inherently, as time went by, I actually became more stupid, less capable, and more confused. More than I'd ever been, even when I first started. So to me, this didn't make sense because I'm like, as time is going by, why am I getting more confused? And why is it the more that I learn, I feel like I'm going 3 steps forward and 10 steps back every single time? This isn't right. I was still very fresh on into the journey, if you like, of understanding what learning trading is actually like. Because in my perspective as well, as someone who'd grown up doing sports and all these things, you know, the more you fail, the better that you get, right? But in trading, it doesn't actually work like that. Sometimes in trading, you'll find that actually the more you fail, the worse you get. Because you don't know if the failure that you're having or the mistakes that you're making are actually practical mistakes, needle moving mistakes, or you're actually just declining. I'll give you a really quick comparison. Let's say, for example, you're learning to train in the gym, right? And you're learning the squats, the bench presses, the different exercises, but you're learning the wrong form from day one. You could fail, let's say the bar slips off your back, or like the weight's too heavy, or you make a mistake, and you think, yeah, just by me making this mistake, I'll become better. When you're not actually doing anything from the mistake, what's going to happen is you'll spend the next 2 years injuring yourself and actually getting worse. So it's not always true that failure equals progression, right? It's one, what you do with it, and number two, what does it actually teach you, if anything? Sometimes a mistake doesn't teach you anything that you don't already know about yourself. And are you even switched on or aware enough to know that? And so obviously if I'm by myself as a 16, 17, 18-year-old over those almost 2 years, just making all these mistakes and going around in literally circles, thinking that I'm progressing, I'm just going to get worse. So it got to a point where I realized pretty quickly, as I started to network with more people, I started to meet people a little bit more. I dropped out of college then when I was 18 years old and went out into the real world, and I realized nobody gives a shit about me, right? Nobody is going to care that I've done this myself. I got to a point where I thought, I'm going to have to start being selfish now. I literally just care about making money. I'm on my own. I've got no college, no university degree. I've got no backing. I've got no qualifications. I've got nothing. I'm just going to have to make it work. Otherwise, I'm going to spend the rest of my life being a bum. And I was sick of just having, I know I was only 18 years of age. It's very, very young, but I wanted money. Right? And I know a lot of you watching, you know, you watch all these videos of people online saying, you know, don't prioritize money. I get it. And it's true. Looking back now, it's 100% true. But tell that to an 18-year-old kid who literally all they want is money. And I think it's a great driver, but it's not a great sustainer. Different topic. So I decided very quickly, I've got to find someone who's done it. I've got to find someone who's actually made this work. There's so many scams online, and there still is to this day. In fact, it's got worse now. But even back then, 2017, 2018, there was a company, I can name them now because I don't think they exist anymore, Astra FX. Came across them, but they were charging thousands, and as like an 18-year-old kid with no job, fresh out of college, dropout, I didn't have any money. So decided, okay, cool, let's look into Falcon. And then it got to a point, so when I came across Falcon, they were charging £47 a month at the time, and they then obviously progressed to £97 a month by the time I decided to join. It was April 2018, and I thought in my mind, yeah, well, I've spent all this time trying to teach myself. Now that I've come across this education, I'm going to make the most of it, and I'm going to make this work. Little did I know that it was actually about to get a lot more difficult. Just because I've got the resources doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to make or take full advantage of them. It's like having a gym membership and thinking, yep, now I've got the gym membership. You feel that dopamine, right? You feel that adrenaline rush. Got the gym membership. Now I'm going to get in shape. Not really. I mean, I know many people who've been going to the gym for years and are in shit shape. So it's not necessarily got to do with the resources that you've got. It's how you use them, obviously. Like, I'm in a 500 brake horsepower car right now, right? If I don't plant my foot to the floor, I won't be able to tell that this is a 500 brake horsepower car if I don't actually drive it how it's meant to be driven. If I leave it in comfort mode as an example. How many of you now, which is the moral of this video, the theme of this video, how many of you have the ability to switch that race mode on, but you're operating in comfort mode, right? I got to that point of frustration, of discomfort, of getting sick of trying to teach myself, for me to realize, and it only took me 18 months to realize that. Some of you that I speak to, it takes you years to figure out, you know, this is enough now. Why do you let you take that long? I've never been able to understand that. I seen a brilliant analogy the other day, which is that if you're laying on red hot stones as an example, right? You're laying on red hot stones. You're going to do anything you can to get yourself out of that position because it's uncomfortable, right? You're not going to stay stood on the stones. You're going to move. You're going to run. You're going to get out of that position. And that shows that the reason you're doing that is because you're uncomfortable. Obviously, you're on red hot stones. If you take the same analogy to your life as a comparison, some of you are actually very, very comfortable with having a shit life. You just don't like to admit it. Because if it was truly uncomfortable like the red hot stones, you would do whatever the hell you can to get out of that situation and move. So that was my perspective as an 18-year-old kid. Of like, I don't want to stay here. I don't care what people think about me. I don't care what they have to say. And again, no one's going to turn around and be like, oh, look, you know, you paid somebody else and they taught you this. I don't give a shit, because I'm going to be the one making money, not the other person. That was my mindset. And it saddens me to think and acknowledge how many people don't adopt that mindset now. And it literally saddens me to think, my camera just fell all over the place there. How many people don't adopt that mindset and don't put themselves first? Too bothered about other people's opinions of like, oh, but you know, what are these stupid TikTokers going to think of, like, when I come out there and, you know, I've made all this money, but I've paid somebody else to do it. Am I going to be that person who gets scammed? You're so bothered about other people's opinions, yet you inherently want to escape this rat race, but you're in the rat race of thinking like everybody else. You have to put yourself first and prioritize it and really ask yourself, are you genuinely uncomfortable with where your life is at the moment? Or do you just flirt or like the idea of succeeding at trading? Because trading isn't for those people that just want to do it and want to dip their toe in. When you want to make something work, you do whatever the hell you can to make it work, right? There's no excuses. You don't cut corners. You don't try and teach yourself. You just put your money where your mouth is and you make it work, as you would do with anything. If someone, as another weird comparison, kidnapped a loved one, right? Let's say your brother or your father, your parent, your kid, whoever. They got kidnapped and you had 24 hours to find them. Would you be bothered about stupid things like getting a coffee or making food or maybe eating dinner somewhere or texting that person back? You would not give a shit. The only thing that would be on your mind is, I need to retrieve this person. I've got 24 hours and time is running out. That urgency. The problem is you don't have that urgency with your own life, right? You just sit there and you coast along and you think you've got all the time in the world and you think that everything's going to be exactly the way that it is now. And yeah, you don't like your situation. You would like a bit more money and you would like to have that nice car. You would like to do this and this. You would like the idea of having more freedom, but you're also semi-okay with having a shit life. It's something to think about.